Hello wonderful people, it's Wild here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this fairy tale fallen log cottage. This cozy build would make for a perfect survival base as it pretty much just uses wooden materials, or it would also make for an incredible addition to any fairy style village. I'll be showing you step by step how to create this build, meaning this fairly complex shape will be easy to create. Plus, if you'd like to access a world download for it or any of my other builds, check out the link to my Patreon in the description below. The materials you'll need for this build are on your screen now. Keep in mind that it's always useful to have a few extra of each supply on hand, and you can swap out any of the colored blocks, for example the mushroom materials, to really customize this build. Now here is our sort of outline for this build. Now it looks a bit different to our regular outlines because we have a bit of a funny shape going on here. So in the lighter color, we've got marked in the total area that this build is going to take up, and that is a 20 by 19 rectangle. Now keep in mind that you will be able to landscape and decorate around here in some of the areas because the log curves out, but you need to allow at least this much space. Then marked in there in the dark coloured concrete, we can see where the log will be touching the ground, and the doorway for this house is off to the left hand side there of this kind of rectangular shape. You don't need to place in an outline like this one because for this kind of build it's not going to be that helpful, but it is important that you allow at least a 19 by 20 rectangular area with your build kind of centered in that space. Alright, so I've removed my outline because I know I definitely have enough space for this build, and for this log we're going to be working along in rings to create the log shape. I'm going to start on the right end of this log here, so I'm working at about this end. I'm going to start by creating an outline out of some temporary blocks, building 5 blocks across like this. Then I'm going to come up 2 high on each side on the diagonal. Then I'm going to come up again and build up 5 high. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1 out to the side in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And out to the side. I'm going to come back in now with 2 diagonal blocks. And we should be able to connect up with 5 blocks across at the top. Perfect. This is going to allow us to make sure that when we place in our oak logs, they're facing all horizontally, following along with the direction of the log. Now I'm using oak wood, that's the kind that has the same bark texture on all of the sides, and that's just going to make it a bit easier to make sure we don't have any open log ends showing where we don't need them. You could always switch these out for some regular logs if you're low on resources and survival, but once we come to finishing off the end, you're going to make sure that we use the oak wood there. So first I'm going to start by going around the outline of this shape, and I'm just going to go up to this height here. I'm then going to switch to some stripped spruce wood, again the texture should be the same on all of the sides, and add them off to either side like this, as well as this diagonal block on either side. And then I'll switch back to my oak wood. There we are. Next we need to fill in this end, and we're going for that interior of a log texture. I'm going to start by going all the way around this edge with some oak planks. There we are. The next layer is going to have some windows using some white stained glass, so let's add those in. We've got 1 centered just like this, and I'm going to come along to either side, placing my blocks onto the glass so they're running this way along with some stripped oak wood. Coming up on either side, I'm going to build up 3 high on the back side of the build, add in a glass, and then finish off with another stripped oak wood. And then on the other side, I'll build up 1 high, add in my glass, and then fill in the rest with some more of those logs. Now along the top, we're going to have 1 more window in the center. Then to connect up these sides, we're just going to add an extra log into the corners. There we go. Switching back to some planks now. We're just going to follow this shape. We should be left with a 3 by 3 square, and let's fill this one in. For the very center, we're going to be using a regular stripped oak log. So I'm going to place in a temporary block so that I can place this stripped oak log facing horizontally like this. And now I can remove any of these temporary blocks on the outside. So here's how the end of our log, should look from the outside. Before we add in the next layer of this log, I'm going to come back around so I'm on the inside side of my build, and we're going to add in a couple of slabs and trapdoors for dimension. I'm going to add a slab on top of here, a trapdoor on top of here, a trapdoor in the center of the top, and a trapdoor on top of here. Okay, on to the next layer, switching back to our oak wood. I'm going to place 5 along the base, and then up to either side and placing in a strip spruce wood. Next we're going to switch back to our oak wood, and I'm going to follow along this outline. And when I get up to this height, I'm going to place in 1 more oak and then a moss block. Coming forward, let's place in 3 more oak wood, and we're going to switch back to some moss for 2 blocks, and then I'll fill in the rest with some more of the oak wood. There we are. Let's add in our trapdoors and our slabs. So we've got a trapdoor underneath here, and then a slab underneath here. I'm adding a slab on top of this block. We've got a couple of trapdoors on these 2 blocks, kind of wrapping around the log like this. Coming up, I'm going to add a trapdoor in the center, or rather a slab in the center and a trapdoor off to the side. I'm going to add in a couple more trapdoors on this side. Another slab, and let's add 1 more slab underneath here and 1 more trapdoor underneath here. Now if you get your slabs and your trapdoors in a little bit of a different position to mine, that's okay. What we're doing is adding some texture from the side of the log. So once we've got more in, it's always a good idea to come back and check that we've got a smooth log-like shape from the outside. We can add in the next layer now. Grabbing some oak wood, we're building 5 across the base. Then we're going up to either side with strip spruce wood. Let's switch to some oak wood. I'm working towards the front now, and I'm adding in this diagonal and then a little upside down L. We'll add in a spruce and another oak. Coming up this way, we've got an oak, then we've got a moss block here, and we're going to change up the shape just a little bit. So I'm going to need a temporary block so that I can add in an oak wood. Then I can remove that, and we're jumping back up to this layer. Let's add in a moss block and 3 more of these oak wood. Let's come up the other side now. So we've already got this spruce in. Then we're going to add in an oak log and another L-shaped oak section. Then we've got a spruce and 2 moss on a diagonal. To finish this off, we're going to add in 1 more moss, and we're going to need a temporary block to place in 1 more oak log coming down like that. So we've got this shape. We need to add in our slabs and trapdoors. You can see the sort of process we're going to be following throughout this build. We've got a couple of slabs here. Coming up onto this middle moss block, we're going to add in a slab. Up towards the top, we've got a slab here and a trapdoor beside it. We're going to add a slab to this block and a slab to this block. Then coming down, I'm going to place in a slab underneath here and a slab underneath here. Now, as we come further along on this log, we're going to be adding some decorations like mushrooms and other things like some leaves and a chimney, but we're going to create the log shape first and add in those decorations later. Let's start on the next ring of the log with 3 oak wood and then a couple of spruce wood on either side of that. And I'm going to come up diagonally with these as well. Then I'm going to work towards the front layer next with an oak log like this. Then we've got a spruce log, a couple more oak, and a spruce here. Then I'm going to use a temporary block to place in my next oak wood. And I'm going to come up again with a temporary block with 2 blocks of moss. Coming back in, let's add in an oak wood, another moss here at the top, and then a couple more of our oak wood blocks. And I'll remove these temporary blocks. You can see we're kind of tapering in for the center of this log. Let's work up towards the back now. Adding in an oak, then we've got a spruce, a couple more oak coming out to this side as well. Add in another spruce wood, and we're going to come in here. So let's place in a temporary block and a couple of moss blocks. Gonna remove that there. And we need to add in an oak wood. Now to add in our details, I'm going to start with a spruce stair, and that's going on top of here. I'm going to place in an oak slab next underneath here and a trapdoor underneath this block. Let's come around over to this side next, where we're going to be adding in a couple of slabs. So we're placing a slab beside this block and beside this block, so you can see how that shape is following down. Let's add in another stair up here and a slab inside that. Coming up onto this log, I'm going to add in another slab, and we're going to add in a trapdoor here. And then we've got one more slab just on that block there. Let's take a step back so we can see this layer, and then we can work on the next one, again with a few more oak logs. Let's grab some spruce and back to oak for 2 up diagonally. Working towards the front first, we've got our spruce, then we've got a moss block. We're going to have an oak and then a spruce again. Coming up this way, we've got a couple of oak wood and then a couple of moss. Let's work up towards the other side now. So we've got these 2 oak blocks, then we're going to have a spruce block, followed by a moss block, followed by an oak block, and finishing with a spruce. Now to connect up this way, we're going to need a moss block here. We're going to use a temporary block to add in another one in a diagonal, and we can remove that. Then I'm going to place in an oak wood and 2 more to finish off this circle. It's almost an egg shape at this point. Now we need to add in the details. We've got a trapdoor underneath this log here. I'm going to add in a slab, and this needs to be level with the bottom of this oak log, so we're jumping up a little bit from that slab there. I'm going to add in a slab here and here, as well as on top of this block at the top, and a trapdoor at the very top in the center. Coming up the other side now, I'm going to place in a trapdoor underneath here. We're going to place in one more spruce slab level with the top of this moss, with a trapdoor on top of that. Then we're going to have a couple of trapdoors, one here, and we're going to have a spruce slab beside this stair. And then on this oak block, we're going to use another trapdoor with a slab above that. So here's this shape. Let's add in one more layer, and then we'll check out how this log is looking from the side. I'm going to again start with 3 oak wood in the center. Then we've got spruce to either side. Then we're going to build up 2 high with some more oak wood. And on either side, we're going to build up 3 high with moss blocks. Now towards this back side, let's add in an oak wood, then a strip spruce log, then we've got another moss and 2 oak wood. Coming up from the front side of the build, we'll have oak, spruce, oak again, then we're going to have moss to finish us off, 1 block here and 2 at the top. So there's our base layer, and in with the decorations, we're going to have a trapdoor here first, a trapdoor on top beside this slab here, and coming over to this side, we're going to have a trapdoor on top of this block and a trapdoor here. Let's check out this log from the sides now. So the front side of the build is looking like this. You can see that if you place in your slabs and trapdoors and stairs in a slightly different place to mine, it's not going to matter too much because we're going for that natural look. But the idea here is to have everything taper in a little bit in the middle so you can see it's curving down, and then it's going to curve back up towards the other end. Let's have a look at the other side. Again, you can see how it's kind of tapering in a little bit as we reach the center of our log and is getting a little bit narrower. Okay, coming back inside our log to work on the next layer, and we're almost at the narrowest point of our log here. We're also going to be adding in a window, so make sure you have some glass on hand. Let's start by placing 5 oak across the bottom, and then we're going to work up towards the front first with 1 oak. Then we're going to have a couple of moss, And then we're going to have our window just like this. Let's place in a moss, then an oak, then we're going to have 2 spruce going up on the diagonal, another oak, and at the top we're going to have 2 moss and 1 oak. Then going towards the back, we're going to place in oak log on the diagonal, and a moss block, 3 more coming up this way. Then we've got an oak, 2 spruce, and then to finish off, 1 more oak block. Now we don't have a lot of details to add to this layer, but we are going to add in a couple of trapdoors, 1 here and 1 here. And we will be adding some decorations to this window a little bit later. If you are building this in survival, it is a good time to place in some torches now because things are going to get a little bit dark underneath here as we create a longer log shape. Let's grab some more oak for this next layer. We'll place 5 across this way. Coming towards the front, I'm going to place in 2 more logs and switch to some moss building up 3 high. Let's grab a few more oak. We're going to have 2 coming back, then a spruce, and then another oak. Now towards the back, let's add in an oak. Then we've got a moss block and 2 coming up this way. Then we're going to have 2 more oak blocks and 1 coming up on the diagonal. Then we've got a spruce block, an oak block, another oak at the top on either side, and a moss in the center. There we are. Let's add in some more slabs. We're starting to curve back out now. So I'm going to be adding a slab in underneath this moss as well as a trapdoor underneath this moss. I'm going to place a trapdoor at the top here, a trapdoor over here, and on this side as well. I'm going to have a trapdoor on top of this block, underneath this moss, and then 1 more spruce slab just underneath here. So you can see how we're kind of starting to curve up as we work towards this left-hand side of the log. Again, for our next layer, we're starting with some oak. Let's place 5 across here, and working to the back, I'm coming up 3 high on the diagonal. Let's add in a moss block, another oak, and then a spruce. I'm going to place in an oak and then a spruce coming up on the diagonal. Then we're going to have another oak and 3 oak across the top. Now, coming towards the front, starting at the base, we're going to build up 3 high with oak. Then we're going to have a moss block, another oak. We're going to have a spruce, an oak, a spruce, and then a moss block to fill in the last part of this shape. Let's go in with our trapdoors and slabs. We're going to be having a slab underneath here beside this one and a trapdoor beside this one. I'm going to place in a slab here and a trapdoor on the next layer. We're going to have a slab on these 2 blocks here and a trapdoor in the very center. Coming back down the other side, I'm going to be placing a slab on top of all of these blocks. Then we're going to have some trapdoors. I'm going to place 1 here and then 1 in front of this block as well. And I'm also going to be adding a slab on the lower level of this oak block here, just like this. And we have 1 more slab for this layer just behind this slab here. We are really starting to flare back out with this next layer. Let's add in some oak wood first along the base, and we're going to go 3 up diagonally to either side. Let's work towards the backs next with a moss block, another one of our oak logs, and then we're going to place in a stripped spruce wood here, and I'm going to use a temporary block to add 1 diagonally down from that as well. Then I can remove that block. Next we've got a oak, then a spruce, a moss on top of that, and an oak beside it. And then along the top, we're going to place in a spruce, an oak, and a spruce again. So we've got half of that done. Let's do this last section. So we've got these 3 diagonally in first, then we're going to have a moss, another oak, then we're going to have our spruce block. Coming up this way, we're going to place in an oak with a spruce on top, and an moss block, or rather an oak with a moss on top, and then a moss block diagonally up from that. So we're placing it on to this slab here. Then to fill in the gap, I'm going to place in 1 more oak wood onto that moss there. So here's our shape. You'll see that it's not actually an even circle. It is a little bit larger on this side, and that's allowing the log to have a more natural appearance. Let's add in some of these decorations. I'm going to work towards the back first with a couple of slabs, as well as a trapdoor here. Coming up to the top, let's add in a slab. Then we're going to have a trapdoor kind of vertically like this. Let's add in a slab on top of this log and a slab in the very center. Then let's work up towards the front. I'm going to add in 2 slabs here and a trapdoor here. Then we're going to be adding onto this section here with a trapdoor placed onto this moss block, and then we're going to be placing a slab above that, so you can see it's getting a little bit bigger. Let's add in another slab up here, and to finish it off, we're going to add in 1 more slab just there like that. On to the next layer with some more of our oak wood, starting at the base again. For this layer, I'm going to be creating 2 little L shapes off to either side with the oak. Then I'm going to build up 2 high with oak logs. And 2 high with stripped spruce wood. Then we're going to be building up a little bit higher in this circle. I'm going to place in an oak wood on either side first. And then I'm going to place in 3 moss blocks going up in a diagonal. 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. Then to finish it off, we need to fill in these 3 blocks with some oak wood. So we're back out to an almost original kind of circular shape that we had on the other side of the log, just with a couple additional blocks here and here. Let's add in the decorative sections for this layer. We've got a slab with a trapdoor. I need to add in 1 more stripped spruce wood to this layer here, and I'm adding a slab on top of that. Then I'm going to come up to the top here, and we're going to be placing in a stair facing towards the rest of the log like this, with a trapdoor on either side. Then coming up from the other side, I'm going to add a slab underneath here beside this slab, and another trapdoor just here like this. Then we're going to be placing a slab onto the bottom of this oak block and a slab on top of that, lining up with these other slabs. Let's do 1 more layer and then we'll have a look at the log again from the sides. Let's start with our oak wood. I'm going to place 5 across the base, and then when we come up to either side, I'm just going to place them in the diagonals because I'll be adding an oak log into the very corner, because this is a place where we do want to be able to see this log texture. Then I'm going to add in 2 more of these oak woods coming up to either side of that, and a spruce in the middle. I'm going to add 2 more oak above here. And we're going to be needing a couple more spruce wood. I'm going to place 1 behind this block here. And then in the center of this 5 high, I'm going to add in 1 on this side. So that'll be placing it onto these 3 slabs on this side. Now we need to curve over the top. Let's start on the back side. I'm going to add in an oak, and then I'm going to add in 2 moss blocks. On the front side, I'm going to add in the same thing with an oak and 2 moss blocks. And then we're going to add in 3 oak wood in the center and an oak wood behind this stair here. Now we need to add in the decorations. So at the top, I'm going to add in a slab on either side of that log. And I'm going to add in a couple more slabs here and below this block here. Over on the front side of the build, I'm going to do a slab on these 2 blocks, these 2 oak logs here, as well as below this block. Then I'm going to add in my trapdoors. So we've got 1 on top of here. And for this layer, that's all the trapdoors we need. We're going to be adding a stair onto this side, facing back towards the rest of the log. And let's check it out from the sides. From this front side, here's how the log should be looking. You can see how it looks like it's curved in and back out, and in fact we're almost at the end of the main section of the log before we add in the rest of the details. Let's check out the back side of the log. It looks fairly similar. The moss patches are in slightly different places, and of course we don't have a window. And let's have a look from above. You can see how it's curved in from above as well. Let's come back down and work on the rest of this log. So at the end we have these open log looking sections, and we're going to have the same thing on this end, but we need to add in a door. So let's start by creating the outline. Beginning with some oak wood, I'm going to build 5 across the base. And then I'm going to create this same shape here. So we've got a couple of wood and an oak log in the corner. Now we need to come up this way. I'm going to build up 4 high with my oak wood. And I'm going to do the same on the front side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now on this second block to the side, I'm going to add in another oak wood just like this, and I'm going to add in a spruce wood on top of that. Same thing on this side. Then above here on the back side of the build, I'm going to place in an oak log. That's the kind with our face showing, and another one diagonally here. I'm going to be placing another one on this side, but we don't need to add one down on this block. Next, we need to continue our outline with another one of these oak wood on either side. Then we're going to have a moss block on either side following up on the diagonal. And then to complete this section here, I'm going to place in 5 oak wood, 4 coming along this way like this, and then 1 coming up. And then we've got 2 oak logs, 1 to fill in that gap and 1 up on top of here. So it'll look like this. Let's add in our slabs and trapdoors. We're going to be having a slab on top of this log just here. We're going to have a trapdoor on top of this log here, and on top of this wood over here. Coming back down, I'm going to add a slab on top of this block and a trapdoor on top of this block. And we're ready to fill in the center. We're going to begin this by placing in our door. It's in the very center of our log like this. I'm then going to surround that with some moss blocks. And then we can start creating the circular shape. Let's create 1 layer of oak planks first. There we go. Next, we're going to be needing some of the stripped oak wood as well as some of our white stained glass. Let's fill to either side with the stripped oak wood first. Then on this side, the back side of the build, I'll build up 1 high, add in my white glass, and then I'll build up 3 high to reach the top. Over on the front side of the build, we'll do the opposite. We'll build up 3 high, add in our glass, and fill in the rest. Now along the top, I'm building in 2 from either side with my stripped oak logs, and then we have a window in the center. And just like on the other side, we need to connect this up with 4 more of these logs. There we are. Now we've got a bit of a funny shape in the center, but I'm going to go along either side like this and the top with some of my oak planks to create a 3x3 square in the center. Then, just as we have on the other side, I'm going to finish off with a couple of oak wood. And then finally, I'm going to place in a temporary block, come inside the build, and add in my last stripped oak log. Coming back out, if we remove those blocks, here's what we should have. So now we've got the main block of the shape for the log, but we're going to extend a little bit on either end just to make this log have a more natural appearance, and it'll mean that the ends look just as good as the sides of the build. So we're going to start on the side where we've got our door, and we're going to be switching to using oak logs for this part. I'm going to be building 3 forward underneath the door, then we'll build 4 forward, and then just 2. I'm going to come up 1 and then 2 beside that. And let's straight away place in a stair and a slab here. Coming up this way, I'm going to be placing in a few more blocks of stairs and slabs. I'm going to add a slab on the top layer of this block and then an upside down stair. On top of that, I'm going to add in another oak log and another stair. Coming towards the side here, I'm going to place in oak logs coming up 3 high and then sticking 1 extra block out here at the top. I'll add in a spruce stair and then a couple of slabs, building 2 out here. Let's continue up. I'm going to place in another slab coming out from this one and then a oak log from this point here. Let's place in another oak log coming forward from here, and then we'll have a stair and a slab. We're coming up towards the top of the build now, so let's add in 1 slab here, 2 oak logs here and 1 beside that, and 1 down on the diagonal like this. Then we're going to place in a couple of slabs, 1 on either side of that oak log. Let's come back down to the base and work up the other side now. So we've got these 3 logs here. Let's place in a log on these 2 blocks to the side and a slab coming out from this one. Coming up higher, I'm going to place in 1 log here and 2 logs on this side. Then I'm going to place in a stair on top, followed by a slab, followed by 2 slabs on the top layer of this log, and I'll place a trapdoor onto this one, so we've kind of pointed out this way. Coming back up, we're going to do a similar trick with this upside down stair and slab, so let's place in the slab first, then the upside down stair, and the block to the side and above. Let's add in 3 more blocks coming out on this side, and I'm going to add in my stair here and 2 slabs beside that on top of those 3 logs. We've just got a little bit to go now. Okay, so we've got this point here where we've got our stair, and I'm going to be adding 1 more slab onto this slab, and I'll add in another oak log right beside that. Coming up on the diagonal, I'll add in our very last oak log for this side, followed by a stair and a slab. And here's how this end is going to look. Once we add in all the leaves and things, it's going to have a really beautiful appearance. And of course, we need to add some decorations to our doorways and windows. Let's come around now to the other end of the log to add in some similar decorations to this side. Let's begin this end with some oak logs as well. I'm going to build out 1 block in the center, 3 blocks to the front side, and 2 blocks to the back side. Then I'm going to place in a couple of slabs. And on this side, I'm going to place in a trapdoor and 1 more slab, or rather 1 more trapdoor on top of this slab. Let's work up towards the front first. I'm going to place in a couple of blocks here and 1 block here, and I'm going to place a slab on top, a stair in front, and then a slab in front of that. Coming up to the next layer, I'm going to be adding in a slab on the slab up from this slab here. Then we're going to place in a couple of trapdoors. Just like that to create a little point. Let's keep working up. I'm going to place in another slab here, just like this, and then 2 slabs coming out below it. Off to this side, I'm going to place in an upside down stair and then 2 of my oak logs. And I'm going to top that off with a couple of trapdoors, 1 here and 1 coming back this way. Let's add in some more of these oak logs, building out 3 blocks this time. On this last block before we reach the top 5, I'm going to add in 1 more of these logs and then a stair. Let's work up the other side next. So we've got this slab in already. Let's build out 2 blocks with logs here and 1 block with log here, and I'll place a slab in this gap. I'm going to jump up to the top layer of this piece of log here, and then I can place in a couple of spruce trapdoors. Next, I'm going to be placing a log onto this strip spruce wood here, and then I can add in a spruce slab off of that. And I want to make sure my trapdoor's flipped and I've got 1 at the top there to create a point like we had on that side. So here's where we're up to. Switching back to the oak logs, let's place in 2 on this block and 1 on the diagonal, and I'm going to place in a couple of spruce trapdoors just there and there. I'm going to skip this block and we're going to jump right up to the top. I'm going to place a slab on this block, build out 2 with oak on this one and 1 here, and then I'm going to place in a couple of trapdoors, 1 here and 1 here. And let's add 1 more trapdoor on top of this trapdoor at the back. You'll need to hold crouch to place that one in. Finally, I'm going to add in a spruce slab, and this is how this end will look. You can see how it kind of looks like the bark on this section of the log has broken away from the rest of the tree branch or trunk, and when we look from the side, it has a much more natural appearance. Next up, we need to add in some decorations to turn this from just a regular fallen log into a fallen log house. I'm going to start by decorating all of the windows with dark oak slabs above and below, a dark oak fence in the center, and then a couple of trapdoors on either side. So that's going to include that side window and all of our end windows as well. I find it easiest to go around placing in 1 of each of the types of blocks at a time, but you might find it easier to do each window separately. As with anything in building, you want to keep practicing until you find a format that works for you. There's all of those windows, and let's do the windows around on the front side. We've just got 3 windows here. If you create this build, be sure to join my Discord to share some pictures. I would love to see it in your world and have you part of my community. There we are. Our windows are decorated. let's add a bit of a decoration around our doorway. Now I'm going with a curved decoration, kind of like a hobbit hole, and I think that that curve, mirroring the shape of the log, looks really great. So we're going to start by placing in 4 oak stairs, kind of facing away from each other like this. And I'm going to place in trapdoors in the gaps between them. So there's the first circular shape. Now we need to create an edge around it. I'm going to be placing in a dark oak log beside each of the trapdoors like this. And then I'm going to go in with some stairs to round off this shape. So there's the 2 sides complete. Now for the top, I'm just going to place in a couple of dark oak slabs here and here. To really light up this build, I'm going to be hanging some lanterns off of the mushrooms we'll be building shortly. But before we do this, I'm going to add a lantern to this doorway, and I'm going to do that by creating sort of an angled beam sticking out from the log. I'm going to start by placing in a slab here with a trapdoor above like this, and then coming out from the side. Then while holding crouch, I'm going to place a stair on top of that. Then we're going to place a slab with a trapdoor on top and finish off with one more slab. So we've got this kind of steady slant like this. Let's add in a grindstone followed by a chain and a lantern. And doesn't that look lovely? And it's hanging at the perfect height above our door. Another way we're going to be illuminating this build as well as the mushrooms is with a chimney. So I'm going to come to this end of the build on the side where we have the window, and I'm going to find this grouping of trapdoors up here. I'm actually going to remove this trapdoor and move it over to the side like this, and this is going to give me a nice spot to place my chimney in. With some mossy cobblestone stairs, I'll place one on top of this block and then upside down like this. Then I'll add a mossy cobblestone block on top of that. Let's add in a stair facing towards the build and then upside down. And we're going to turn back this way, so I'm going to add another stair facing that way on top and another stair upside down. Then I'm going to add in a block, and we're going to go back towards the build now with another stair, a stair upside down, and then we need to add on one more block on top. This is where we're going to add in our campfire, which I'll surround with a few more spruce trapdoors. So if your chimney ends up a little bit different to mine, that's okay, but we want this twisty, natural look. Next, let's add in our mushrooms. For the stems, I'm using smooth sandstone. For this first mushroom, I'm going to find these 2 slabs on the front of the build where we have this mossy patch, and I'm going to place in an upside down stair like this. Then I'm going to add in a block coming up 2 high, and this is where we're going to add in our mushroom top. I'll first surround this top block with some of our mushroom blocks. I'm using the red mushroom for a more whimsical look, but if you wanted this build to have a more natural look, you could swap out the red for some of the brown mushroom blocks. Then I'm going to add in a little plus symbol on the top just to round off the shape. And I'm going to add a few lanterns onto this mushroom, one here and then one hanging a chain length down, just like this. For the next mushroom, I'm going to come forward to this rough area of the build, and I'm going to start by placing a stair onto this log where we have it below the spruce and beside a slab. I'm going to build up a block high, and then I'm going to add another stair facing outwards like this. We're going to curve out this way next with a slab at the top layer of this stair and a slab coming up, and then off to this side I'm going to be placing in some blocks. So we've got 3 blocks coming up. I'll surround the top block with a square of my red mushroom blocks and add a little plus just like before. There we go. Now for some lanterns. I think I'll hang this one down 2, maybe 3 here, and just 1 on this block. We're going for a really natural look with these lanterns. There we go. Let's rotate round to the other side of the build now. I'm going to find this mossy patch here, and this is where we're going to be adding in our next mushroom. So I'm going to be placing in a stair facing to the side just here like this. Then I'm going to add a stair on top like that and a stair coming out, and this is where I'm going to build up 2 high with my blocks. Then we can surround with some of our red mushroom, add in our little plus, and hang in some lanterns. Let's put one on the corner, Let's hang maybe 2 lengths down here, and let's go 1 length down over on the side. Before we move onto the big mushroom that's going to be up here, I'm just going to add in 1 more slab just coming out from this block, just to frame this mushroom nicely so we have a block's gap on either side. Alright, moving up now, our next mushroom is going to be placed on this oak wood here beside these 2 slabs and above this slab and this stair. I'm going to start with a smooth sandstone stair, then we'll add in a block and another stair facing upwards like this. Then we're going to add in a couple of slabs on the top layer and 1 up from that, and I'm going to build up 3 higher beside this slab. 1, 2, 3. Around the top of here, I'm going to surround with some smooth sandstone slabs to create the top of the mushroom's underside. Now, since this mushroom is a bit bigger, instead of using the mushroom blocks, I'm going to use some red and white wool. Again, if you're going with the brown mushrooms here, you could swap out the wool colors in here for perhaps brown and white, or some of the plain mushroom blocks like you have on your smaller mushrooms. And we're going to be working side by side. Let's start on this face of the mushroom first. I'm going to start by placing in some red wool with a couple of spots. Then I'm going to drop down on these 2 sides. I'm going for a kind of wavy edge to this mushroom. Around to this side, I'm going to create a little L shape here. And I'm going to add in a spot coming down like this. Coming around to the other sides now, let's work on this side that's closest to the build. I'm going to place 3 red wool across this way. I'll come 2 down on this side and add in a white spot here. And on to the next side. For this side, I'm going to build 3 across in red, come down on either side and add in a spot, and then 1 more in the middle. Now we need to add in the top. I'm going to have 3 white spots here, and the rest we filled in with red. And the idea is to get a fairly even distribution of spots on all the sides. I think that looks good. Let's add in the lanterns for this mushroom. Because this mushroom has an uneven edge, I don't need to hang my lanterns at different heights. They'll each be 1 chain down. Because the mushroom has different heights, all of these lanterns look like they're at different heights when you view them from the different angles. Before we finish up on the exterior, I'm going to come inside the build to add in my mezzanine floor. Now, of course, you could leave this whole log open for decorating, you could divide it into rooms, or just add in a full floor to create 2 stories. But I like to do a mixture of both, where you still keep the beautiful height of this log interior, but you have a bit more area to decorate. I'm going to start by adding in a ladder, or to be more precise, a glowberry vine hanging down beside the doorway here. And I'm going to use some bone meal to make sure every one of these sections is lit up. Next, I'm going to add in my floor. So I'm going to be using spruce slabs for this, and I'm going to be placing these on the layer just below this log here. This is giving us plenty of room above, as well as a nice space below. I'm going to place 1 block in beside these berries. I'll come back and across 2 like this. Then I'm going to come back in 1. Do that again. Then I'll come across 2 blocks like that, and then back in 1 again, creating this sort of circular shape. Everything about this build has a more rounded effect. And I can go ahead and fill in the rest of this floor. When it comes time to light up your build, an option you could use is to place some sort of light block into these slabs. That'll hang down a half block from the ceiling below like that, and you'll be able to cover up the light block with perhaps some carpet or some furniture above, while still illuminating the space. There we go, all filled in. Next, I want to add some railing, and we're going to be using trapdoors for this. I'm going to start by placing a trapdoor directly onto these berries like that. Then I'm going to come in and place a trapdoor here. The next trapdoor is going to be placed onto a temporary block so that it sits out connected like this, and I'll jump back for the next one. Let's add in a temporary block to place in this trapdoor so you can see we're curving around. Next, we've got a trapdoor here. Then we're going to be placing our next trapdoor in front of this one, so I'll need a temporary block to add that in. Let's have another trapdoor here next, and the next 2 are going to be placed onto a couple of temporary blocks over this gap. Let's remove those, add in a trapdoor here, and then one more trapdoor here. To finish up the railing, I'm going to be adding in a few more trapdoors beside the glow berries, just here like this. And that way when we climb up, we're not going to go falling off the edge and we can walk up to our next story. Let's hang in some lighting next. I'm finding myself in the center of the top of the log, counting in 2 blocks, and I'll place in a chain and a lantern. Then in the very center, which should be 2 blocks in from either side of these chains, I'll just place a lantern like this. Again, creating a beautiful curve to match the curved shape of the ceiling. Coming back down, here is where I'm going to vary my lighting depending on how I decorate. I could add a carpet here with a light block underneath, but for now I'm just going to place in a couple of torches above the window and above the doorway. I also want to make a bit of a feature of this gap here, so I'm going to hang some lanterns in the corner. I'm going to start by hanging 3 chain lengths down in the very corner and place a lantern onto that. I'm going to come across and I want this next lantern to be sitting a block up, so I'll just hang 1 chain length down, just like this. The next block I'm going to have of my chains hanging from is this moss block here. And this is the one I want the highest, so I'm just going to go 2 chain lengths down and add in my lantern. Alright, back outside to continue decorating. An important part of this log is to add in lots of greenery. And in fact, by placing in the slabs the way I have, I've added in spaces to be able to drape that greenery down. For example, these slabs look like they could have continued a little further along this way, but I wanted to allow space to place in some leaves, and I'm going to drape them down in front of the build like this. When it comes to adding in leaves and greenery, it is up to you how many or how little you add. I like to go for a lot, but it is up to you. Let's see, I think that looks pretty good. I might drape down a few this way as well. It's about taking a step back every now and then and checking you like how it looks and then adding more or taking away. So let's keep adding in these leaves until we're happy with the finished product, and then we can work on adding in more greenery on top of the moss and finishing off those last few details to bring the build to life. If you're enjoying today's video and would like to access some additional benefits like world downloads or schematics for any of my builds and access to a multi-world server, check out my Patreon. I would love to build and play alongside you, and I'd really appreciate your support. Alright, I've added in all of the finishing details, and doesn't it look magical? I've decided to place my fallen log cottage beside this little stump cottage, and it makes it look as if this house is a continuation of the large tree that was once growing here, and it has a really sweet vibe as a little fairy tale village. So I've connected my pathway up, but you could lead a pathway wherever you like. But adding in a pathway when decorating a build is a really important step to grounding it. So you can see I've used a mixture of gravel and then some of these dead coral blocks to achieve lots of texture, and I have it coming right up to my front door. Looking from above, you can see the path winding across the front of the builds there, and I haven't gone with a solid look. I've broken up the path to tie in with the natural look of this build. Now, of course, I've gone with these red and white mushrooms, and I've placed them all over. I think it is a really fun way to add lots of color to a neutral build, and it really ties in with that fairy tale look. And I've even used a giant custom mushroom to create a swing set. Doesn't it look adorable? You can find a tutorial for how to create this in the description below. Look at this little swing. Let's have a look at some of the other decorations. For starters, we've got lots of greenery, and I've placed in bushes using this flowering azalea like we have over the top of the build, here and there, just to frame the build a bit more. I've also placed in these patches of wheat with the neutral color tying in with the wood tones in the build. And because they are quite a bright hue, they really do frame the build nicely. I think it's always important to use materials that are within the main building in your landscaping. So of course, we've got dark oak for our window decorations, so I've used dark oak fences here. And I've just placed some here and there with some lanterns on top to light up the area a bit. I've also placed in a few little garden beds where I have placed in some pods all at the base to separate them from the grass around, and I've used red, pink and white flowers as well as some greenery. You could absolutely swap out the colors you use decorating this build, and if you do, you might want to swap out these leaves here for perhaps some plain azalea leaves or another type of leaf. You could even experiment in switching out the wood to create different types of logs. This kind of looks like an oak tree, but you could make a dark oak tree or even something fun like a nether tree. I've placed my build in a dark oak forest, but this would look fantastic in any biome. It really is about creating a scene around your build, so there are so many ways you can decorate. You can go with mostly natural decorations like I have here, or add in more garden furniture. And now I've just made it night so we can see how the lanterns hanging from these mushrooms really makes this build look special. It illuminates the log just enough that you can see all of those wonderful curves we've created, but it's mysterious and invites you inside. So now you've got the most beautiful fallen log cottage. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, I'd really appreciate it if you consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. And I'll see you in another video.